so sure about that because I'm chilly.
Is it? You can't start the last few days of the month.
Now I'm good.
It's around 30 days.
I've got another suit coat you can throw over your shoulders in my office, so.
We're all saving money on utilities.
All right, Deb, when you're ready, we will.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 232 FN and welcome the prime sponsor who will introduce herself. And I guess she's got company.
I do. I have company with me. Oh, actually. Please. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman Gray and honorable committee members. For the record, I'm Senator Deborah Altshuler. I represent Senate District 24, which includes the towns of Exeter, Greenland, Hampton, Hampton Falls, Northampton, Rye, and Stratham. I'm here to introduce Senate Bill 232, making an appropriation to support the work of the New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. I'm honored to be joined today by Lieutenant Eric Kinsman, Commander of New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, commonly known as ICAC. I spent a decade of my career in advocacy in New Hampshire's largest violence crisis response center, working with survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking. There is no way to create a hierarchy of horror among these crimes, but there is a series of crimes that have grown exponentially, and that is internet crimes against children. When I first came to the legislature, one of my very first acts was to amplify the work of New Hampshire's ICAC and advocate for their inclusion in the New Hampshire state budget. The internet has proven to be an effective and more anonymous way to seek out and groom children for criminal purposes, such as producing and distributing child sex images. Predators contact and stalk children through social media communities, online gaming, and dating sites for the purpose of engaging in sexual acts and exploiting children with sexual manipulation for personal gratification and for financial gain. Ideally, we would have safeguards to prevent children from being drawn into the dark spaces where their curiosity and trust are exploited. While we work on that end of the entrance to the internet, we have to address the real and pervasive problems right here in New Hampshire, which is exactly what our Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force is tackling. I would like to draw your attention to Senate Bill 232's statement of purpose. The General Court finds that the use of online platforms has led to a burgeoning of child abuse, sexual abuse exploitation, and endangerment to New Hampshire's children. The New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, New Hampshire ICAC, has been a key component in the identification of exploited children and prosecution of the perpetrators of this particularly insidious method of abuse. Recognizing the critical work of New Hampshire ICAC, in 2017, the General Court made appropriations for Forensic Shield for salaries, benefits, training, and equipment related to the investigation of internet crimes against children and to expand educational efforts to interested groups, schools, and parents. Since then, the funds have been dispersed every 2 years in the amount of $500,000. As recently as 2018, New Hampshire ICAC was receiving 30 to 50 cyber tips per month and assisted with conducting 352 investigations. In 2021, New Hampshire ICAC received 1,107 cyber tips, an average of 92 per month, and assisted with investigating 848 total investigations. Currently, in 2022, New Hampshire ICAC has averaged 153 cyber tips per month. This dramatic increase in a relatively short amount of time has put a tremendous strain on New Hampshire ICAC's capabilities. Lieutenant Kinsman will have even more updated statistics in his presentation, which is what brings us here today, our duty to protect the children of New Hampshire and bring justice to people who perpetrate these heinous crimes against them. This is difficult work. It is draining psychologically, emotionally, and physically. We need top-notch investigators who are at their very best at the moment we need them. The children whose images of them suffering assault, abuse, and torture that live on pornography websites, are traded on the dark web, are used as currency and recovered on flash and hard drives of perpetrators. They are more than just a line item in the budget. They need us to speak up for them, to highlight the good work the state budget can do. I'll let Lieutenant Kinsman tell you a little bit more about it, but one of the things that our money has paid for so far is the addition of a canine officer, do we call him an officer? To our unit, who just today demonstrated why he is such a critical investment. Our canine friend, Nico, just today was able to uncover a hard drive that was being held or hidden behind a plug in a bathroom. And the reason Nico was able to find this behind the outlet, hidden in the wall, is that sprayed on hard drives and flash drives is a substance called tryphenyl phosphine oxide, which is also known as TPPO, and it is a chemical that coats memory chips to protect them from overheating. And it has an odor that canines like our Nico can pick up. So now there's a case open because Nico was able to do the work that Nico does, and Matt Fleming was there to execute this. In the interest of the committee's time, I'm going to turn over the remainder of my time to ICAC Commander Lieutenant Eric Kinsman and ask him to answer your questions.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you to each of you for your time today. As the Senator had indicated, I am here.
State your name for the record.
I'm so sorry. My name is Lieutenant Eric Kinsman. I'm a lieutenant with the Portsmouth Police Department and the current commander of the New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. As the Senator had indicated, I am here obviously to speak on behalf and in favor of Bill 232 to appropriate the increase in funds for the Forensic Shield grant. Just to kind of give a brief background as to how that money is currently utilized. As indicated, that money is utilized to pay for partial salaries and benefits and training and equipment related to the investigation of these crimes, and also to expand our educational efforts and be proactive with special interest groups, schools, and parents. In 2018, when Forensic Shield was just really kind of getting off the ground, New Hampshire ICAC received a total that year of 531 cyber tips, as indicated. Is just to give you a brief update, in 2022, New Hampshire ICAC received 1,823 cyber tips. Just to do the math for you, that represents a 243% increase in caseload since as recently as 2018. In addition to that, we've also seen a massive increase in the cost for equipment and software that is utilized for digital forensic processing of evidence that we seize when we're doing executing search warrants. Again, as a general comparison, as recently as 2018, New Hampshire ICAC was doing anywhere between 3 to 4 search warrant executions per month. That's now up to 3 to 4 per week. So 3 to 4 times per week, New Hampshire ICAC is involved in the execution in some way, shape, or form in an execution of a search warrant here in the state. So as you can imagine, that also results in a huge increase in the evidence that we're processing. Back in just as recently as a year ago, just to give you a piece of example, one piece of forensic equipment that we utilize, it used to cost me $4,300 for the licensing software for 12 months for just that one piece of equipment. And we have several of those pieces of equipment which is necessary to process this evidence in different parts of the state. In 1 year, that same vendor increased the cost to $6,100. So I've seen a 43% increase in cost for equipment that is necessary and crucial to investigate these crimes while having to work with the same amount of money that was appropriated for Forensic Shield back in 2018. That, in conjunction with what we're seeing to be law enforcement staffing shortages across the state, to be honest with you, it's a nationwide epidemic, but the staffing shortages that we're seeing across the state has affected New Hampshire ICAC because we rely very, very heavily on affiliate agency participation. Task force members who are members of ICAC are members of the local law enforcement agencies here in the state of New Hampshire. But some smaller agencies, for example, because of staffing shortages, are being pulled back from detectives, for example, to work empty shifts in patrol. So as a result, some cyber tips and ICAC cases are sitting longer than necessary in an effort to investigate these heinous crimes in a timely manner. So therefore, some of that money that would be appropriated would be utilized to help bring on more additional investigators, to help train them, to help send them to get them proficient enough to investigate these crimes. As the senator had mentioned, a large portion of the funding for Forensic Shield also funds K9 NICO. K9 NICO's addition to our task force has been a game changer, quite frankly. Not only has he been, it's been crucial in locating evidence that, quite honestly, I can say, in putting my pride aside for a second, that we would have completely missed. As was alluded to today, we assisted Massachusetts State Police with an ICAC-related case, and Maddie was called down. Their K9 was not available. Maddie was called down and found a crucial piece, a hidden camera that was behind a false outlet that was elevated up on the wall. That camera was putting a live feed into a server that the suspect had somewhere else in his house. And he had over 1,000 terabytes of material, just child sexual abuse material that was on that server. Had it not been for Nico's input, that was evidence that quite honestly probably would have been missed. So some portion of the Forensic Shield budget is utilized to make sure K9 is up to date with his training, make sure he has the equipment necessary to make sure that he's in top-notch condition. And so the financial plan for moving forward with this additional funding would be to fund a cyber tip manager. Would be the person that would handle the incoming caseload of cyber tips coming from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and be able to get those cyber tips prepped out for investigation. Right now, that responsibility falls on me as the ICAC commander, but this additional funding would allow me to hire a part-time cyber tip manager who could handle that immense caseload. It would also allow me to hire a part-time investigator up in the Grafton and Coos County areas of the state, which has an overwhelming amount of work with very, very limited staffing. So that funding would allow to hire a part-time person to handle that caseload. And then it'll also allow me to put additional forensic equipment out in the Sullivan and Cheshire counties of the state. Back in the day, we only used to have one lab in the Manchester area at the federal building, but we've been able to increase our capabilities and have smaller satellite labs across the state, which saves time and effort with processing this massive amount of evidence. So that financial increase in funding will allow me to put equipment in those areas of the state to address that need. And like I said, it would also be, it would allow also to continue with the positive outreach. I mean, unfortunately, because of the caseload, we are pushed back on our heels and in sort of a reactionary mode, but being able to have investigators in place who can get out into the communities, teach our students, teach our teachers about ways in which they can play a role in teaching internet safety to our students. So I'd be more than happy to address any questions that you have. I'm sure that there's probably many. I could talk all day on this if given the opportunity.
Questions from the senators? Senator Rosenwald and then Senator Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question, is your budget part of the Department of Justice?
From the state? Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Senator D'Alessandro. Would you hit your button? I appreciate it.
Currently, what is the appropriation? Is the appropriation currently $500,250 a year?
Yes, sir, it is. And what we would be asking for would be an additional $150 per year. So the total amount would go from $500,000 to $800,000 that would be appropriated to New Hampshire ICAC.
Okay. So you're looking, further question, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
So you're looking for 150. It looks like it's 400,000 here. Where's that number come from?
So it would be a total of going from, so right now it's 250
Yes.
per year. So it would be an additional 150 per year. So it would be 400,000 per year
Okay.
for a total of 800,000.
Okay.
Right now it's 500,000
Right, got it.
for 250
Got
each year.
Right, so you're not looking for an additional 400,000?
No, sir.
Right, okay. So
No,
that-
sir.
That's clarified. Further question,
Absolutely.
how else are funds derived for your program? Who else helps in funding this program?
So there's 61 ICAC task forces across the country. Some states have more than one just based on their geographical size and population. So each ICAC task force is funded through the U.S. Department of Justice under the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. So each ICAC task force gets a federal grant each year from the Department of Justice. But again, as a matter of just comparison, this past year, this past federal fiscal year cycle, my budget actually got decreased by 40%. So I lost money compared to last year. So
Further question,
Absolutely.
has there ever been an attempt by you and the agency that you represent to expand the base of support?
yes, absolutely. Are you talking about here in the state or
Yes.
just, yes, we have. At the end of the day, and this is where our community outreach comes into play.
Right.
And quite frankly, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the senator's support. It was through a community outreach program that we were doing that the senator had approached me, and we were able to kind of get to the place where we are now. That is an example of an opportunity to constantly try to think outside the box. I have to be careful because I can't use one budget to supplement another, for example, but there are those efforts that are constantly in place.
And one further question, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and
What
Senator
about the
Birdsell
su-
after you.
What about the success? Now, we're looking at numbers here, the number of tips per month, et cetera. What's the success rate in getting into these tips, finding out where they come from and closing them down?
Well, these cases are probably some of the most complex cases out there. Each case takes sometimes months to kind of dissect and get into. I am proud to say here in New Hampshire, we are very successful in the cases that we take on. And that has everything to do with the caliber of investigators that we have within the state and the dedicated members that are within the task force. But so we have, we've had strong, I'd be certainly happy to provide you with specific examples, but there's been a number of successful cases where we've had strong conviction rates and high numbers of arrests.
And one last question, Mr. Chairman. The support from law enforcement across the state, is it consistent with the kind of work that you're putting in? Are they sled length with you in terms of chasing these crimes down?
Yeah, at the end of the day, these crimes are tough to explain because to a certain extent, they're not tangible. It's not like I'm walking across the street and you're seeing a bank robbery in progress. Like these are internet-based crimes.
Right.
Internet has no boundaries. And so it's a matter, I spend a lot of time and energy trying to get to a lot of different agencies to help bring them on as affiliate agencies. And I do have those conversations to explain how the crimes are being committed. And quite frankly, it's not a pleasant conversation, but part of that conversation involves that me explaining to chiefs of police or sheriffs that these crimes are literally happening within your own communities. And these are felonies that are actively happening that require, an intense amount of work.
Well, thank you for your work, and I see the spread of the crime.
Senator Birdsell, you had a question.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
I do. Thank you for taking my question. So when was NICO brought on board?
In the summer of 2020.
Follow-up?
Yes, ma'am.
So was, in the prior appropriation, was NICO included in that appropriation?
And prior to 2020, no.
Okay.
But what we when I prepare the budget, the Forensic Shield budget, every 2 years, when NICO was brought on, I was able to kind of find some extra money somewhere. Now, I have to give, for the record, I have to give an extreme amount of recognition to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, because had it not been for their support, that I don't think that the canine program, that NICO's canine program would be what it is today. That being said, there is a small amount of money that's budgeted for just reimbursing Deputy Fleming for food, for example. If he goes to training, we'll pay I'll reimburse him mileage to go to training. But it's because of the commitment from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and quite frankly, the dedication of Deputy Fleming as a canine handler that contributes to Canine Nico's success.
Follow up?
Who would handle the vet bills? Is it the Hills?
Actually, we do. We do, meaning the task force.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Knock on wood, there hasn't been many.
Additional questions? Seeing none,
Sen-
thank you very much.
Senator,
Ezra, is there anybody signed up on the other sheet?
Senator.
No one signed up. There are 6 additional people who have signed in but did not indicate they wanted to speak. They're all in favor. Is there anyone out there that has got to come up and speak? With that?
May I add one last thing before you close your hearing? I had a conversation this afternoon with the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and they are in favor of this effort too. So, thank you.
As we would expect, right? All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing and we'll open the public hearing on the next bill just as soon as we're ready. And that goes back to.
Nico cleared out the room.
All right.
I don't know about the rest of the many people on the committee, but I had a present sitting on my desk when I got back
Yeah.
to the office, a copy of the budget. HB1.
Thank you.
All right, we will open public hearing on Senate Bill 115 and ask the prime sponsor to introduce herself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues on Senate Finance. I'm happy to be on this side of the table for a few minutes. For the record, I'm Senator Cindy Rosenwald, and I have the honor to represent Senate District 13, which is most of the city of Nashua. I am pleased to introduce Senate Bill 115, which will help solve a problem recently discovered relative to vaccinations for homebound or otherwise underserved seniors. Specifically, public health networks that serve a region, such as Nashua's Public Health Department, have learned that they cannot use the federal vaccine funds the state gets to pay for the vaccines if they're vaccinating Medicare enrollees. This is because the program, which is known as 317, is for adults without insurance or who are underinsured. In the case of Nashua's Public Health Department, and remember, there are only 2 public health departments really in the state, Nashua and Manchester. But Nashua, they provide a range of vaccinations to approximately 100 older residents each year, not only in Nashua, but in surrounding towns. The most common vaccines they've been giving, I believe, are Tdap and hepatitis, but they also do influenza or really anything, any approved vaccines. This program is important because it serves a population that does not have ready access to other sites of care. In some cases, it's a mobile van. Some people do get down to the public health center. So I asked the Department of Health and Human Services to come up with a number, and that's where the appropriation of $20,000 for the 2-year biennium comes from. I will say that Medicare changed some of its rules beginning January 1st of this year after I signed off on the bill, and the department wants to suggest a very small amendment to the language, which I think would be helpful. And also the Director of Nashua's Public Health Department is here, and she wants to answer your specific questions about how this program works. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
In fact, 3 of the people who signed up are all from City of Nashua. Bobby and Kim are both, they're the next 2. We'll ask you to come up together and hopefully coordinate your testimony as best you can so that we don't repeat a lot of things and we can act on a whole bunch of other bills that people want us to take care of. All right. The floor is yours. Please introduce yourselves.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Bobby Bagley, and I'm the director for the City of Nashua's Division of Public Health and Community Services. I'm also a registered nurse and have extensive training in public health. And I'm here this afternoon to testify in support of Senate Bill 115 relative to making the appropriation to the Department of Health and Human Services for the purpose of funding vaccines to be administered at the local health departments. Thank you, Senator Rosenwald, for introducing and sponsoring this bill, and thanks to the other sponsors as well. This bill is very important to reducing barriers to access for adults seeking vaccination at our local health department. Currently, at our health department, we offer vaccinations through on-site vaccination clinics during our mobile van outreach and in the community at various sites when requested, pretty much all year round. This gives the maximum opportunity to reaching people where they are, allowing for them to make the choices for vaccine coverage to protect themselves and live their healthiest lives. During this past fall, we encountered challenges that are counterintuitive to our goal of vaccinating as many as want to be vaccinated to prevent illness in the community, when we had to turn away seniors over 100 in the months of November and December. The passing of the Inflation Reduction Act in January does allow for vaccinations through the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or the ACIP, to be covered with no copay or cost share, which also allows for the provision of additional access to many adults. However, we are still met with the challenges of having to turn away those who have Medicare Part D and Part D, or the Advantage Plan with prescription coverage at our local health department. So I'm glad to hear that we're asking for that to be taken out. If we were to use the 317 vaccination funds. At the City of Nashua, we purchase vaccines for Nashua residents. We are, however, a regional-led, the regional lead for our public health region, and we'll have residents that will come to Nashua from surrounding towns to get vaccinated at our clinics if they can't get a doctor's appointment or for other various reasons. This funding will allow for us to vaccinate those adults who attend the clinics that are not Nashua residents and regardless of having Medicaid or Medicaid insurances. Our ultimate goal at the health department is to get vaccine in the arms of those who want them to protect their loved ones and themselves. I'm going to turn it over now to our Chief Public Health Nurse from the City of Nashua, Kim Bernard, for her testimony, if I can do that.
I can. Go for it.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair and members of the committee. As Bobby stated, my name is Kim Bernard. I live and work in Nashua. I'm the Chief Public Health Nurse at the Division of Public Health and Community Services. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 115 and thank Senator Rosenwald for sponsoring this bill. As public health professionals, one of our core goals is protecting and promoting the health of our community. A key factor in facilitating this is through prevention. Through increasing vaccination rates, we can assist in preventing severe illness or death from many communicable diseases. Our clinics serve the greater Nashua region, which includes Nashua and the 12 surrounding towns. What we are seeing in our clinics is that there are challenges in providing vaccines to certain populations due to funding guidelines under the 317 vaccination program. So what is 317? Section 317 of the Public Health Service Act authorizes the federal purchase of vaccines to vaccinate children, adolescents, and adults. It is directed towards priority populations such as underinsured adults. Dependent on the type of Medicare, a vaccine may or may not be covered. Children who come to our clinic, regardless of insurance status, are eligible to receive the ACIP recommended vaccines through funding from both the Vaccine for Children, or VFC program, and state funding. For adults, there are barriers for several different populations. For example, an individual has Medicare Part D and Part D, or an Advantage plan, which is Part C, with prescription coverage for vaccines. They are not eligible to use 317 funded vaccines such as Tdap, which is tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis, otherwise known as whooping cough, or shingles vaccine. We have to refer these clients to a pharmacy or their healthcare provider. Our clinics also have limitations with high-dose flu vaccine supply. High dose is the dose recommended for those that are 65 and older, when serving those that live outside Nashua city limits. Regardless of insurance, we also have to refer these clients to a pharmacy or their healthcare provider. So why is this an issue? Older adults are at higher risk for severe illness with many disease processes. They are reaching out to their public health department, and we are putting up barriers, decreasing access to care when we turn these clients away. They may not follow through on going to another facility to get their vaccine due to many reasons, such as transportation, mobility, or accessibility to appointments. For high-dose flu, we have city-funded flu supply for city employees and city residents. The state does not carry high-dose flu, so it's purchased directly through a pharmaceutical company. We are unable to use this funding stream for residents who live outside Nashua. Recently, we had a couple in their 90s that came to our clinic looking for high-dose flu shots. Since they lived in a town outside of Nashua, we could not use our high-dose flu supply. They then asked if they could receive the regular flu vaccine. We had to turn them away since they were insured. As you can imagine, we felt terrible turning this couple away, as well as other individuals in the same situation. If we received the funding that this bill would provide, the Public Health Department could directly purchase these vaccines and administer at our clinics or in the community for those who do not qualify under 317 funds. We need to do better to decrease barriers to health care for all people. I urge you to vote in favor of Senate Bill 15 and thank you for 115, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of this bill.
Questions from the senators? Senator Del Sando.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's the demographic of your community based on age? Give me those who are, say, 60 and over and fall into this category of the older person.
Well, we have, I'm not sure on the exact numbers, but we do serve a large community of the older population. To give you an idea, we've had waiting lists for things such as shingles vaccine, a few hundred long.
Further question?
Absolutely.
So how could we get the demographic? Now, I know the census gets that, but by age and by category, this would give us, I think, a very good feeling as to what's going on here in terms of need.
Mm-hmm.
Could you get that for us? Would you get that for us?
Yes, Senator, we can get that information, and then we can send it to...
Send it to Senator Rosenwald, since she's the
I'll get it today.
prime sponsor, because she's going to be the one that writes the amendment to the bill anyway. She may not know that yet, but she does now.
She does now.
So we can get that demographic for Nashua and the surrounding
Great.
towns as well, since we
Thank you.
serve.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The only one left on my list is Ryan from the department.
Good afternoon, Senator Gray, members of the committee. My name is Ryan Tandian. I'm the Bureau Chief for the Bureau of Infectious Disease Control at the Division of Public Health Services. Here today to voice our support for Senate Bill 115. And as Senator Rosenwald had mentioned, we are also working closely with her on that proposed slight change to the language. As Senator Rosenwald had mentioned, Banacare, effective January 1st of 2023, expanded vaccine access through their Medicare Part D program. However, there are still gaps that do exist for both the above 65 age population, as our colleagues in National Public Health had addressed. However, by removing the specific Medicare language in the bill, it would provide more flexibility for the public health departments and also capture other members of the population where gaps exist that may not be eligible for 317 funding, as well as those access to care barriers. And I'm here today to answer any other questions the
Questions
committee
from
may
the
have.
senators? Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you very much. Just in looking at the fiscal note, it says sufficient to provide 153 doses. Where did that number come from? Is it enough?
Sure, thank you for the question. So the way that we worked through that is we have with 317 funding, there is a contract with the CDC which allows us to purchase vaccine at a discounted rate. So looking at the average of averages is where we came up with that. So certain vaccines such as annual influenza could cost approximately $15 a dose, but as others have mentioned, the shingles vaccine is quite costly, sometimes over $200 a dose. So looking at averages, we estimated we could cover approximately 100 to 150 individuals per year, depending on where the demand is.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Ezra, anybody else? No? That's the end of my list. Is there anybody that is going to feel slighted if I close the hearing? Apparently not. The hearing is closed. More than likely, we're going to go into executive session, but I'm going to wait until I get the high sign. Okay, do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So that was Senator Innes and Senator Birdsall. Okay, the sheet that I'm going to be using is that one.
Okay.
Does it say 214-R? No, I've got 213.
Oh, mine's 214.
All right, well,
Mine does.
I don't have it.
SB 55FN.
That works.
We're gonna talk about the numbers anyway. So, for those of you that are thinking that we're going to accept the bills that we heard today, probably not. Okay, especially on the last one, since we need an amendment, so we won't do anything with that. And on the prior one, it is possible that we would, but I don't know that there's a whole lot of people left from the first hearing. So just to let you know, nothing is going to happen on 115 today. Okay? All right, SB 55FN is the Cannon Mountain Tramway.
I move on to pass.
We have a motion of ought to pass from Senator Birdsall. Second from Senator Bradley.
Just a question to either Senator Bradley or Senator Birdsall. Now, which item are we going to be talking about, the tram or the gondola?
The way the bill is written, the bill is written for the tram.
Right.
And the tram was the recommended option from those that testified
Right.
for several reasons, including that the tram would be able to work on days when the wind was higher.
Sure.
And would carry more passengers. In fact, a small bus load of people could all be on the tram at the same time, keeping them together and causing less problems there.
I think those are true and outstanding comments. My only question is, there was a letter from the chief executive who had a different opinion. And what does that mean to us going forward?
Well, it means that if he hasn't changed his mind, we've decided to go a different way.
Thank you.
But I think there was conversations with his office that expressed the same things that I just talked about, and why the tram would be, more than likely though, Senator, this will be a pass and table.
Right.
Like many of the bills that are on the top part of the list that I've got.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that the governor's office, by the time the House gets done with the budget and gives it to us and we start working on it, will have ample opportunity to express his displeasure if we're doing something that he's not happy with.
Thank you very much.
Me.
Jeb seconded, Senator Birdsell was the original motion. Okay. Senator Bradley.
Yeah, thank you very much. I didn't testify on the bill as someone who went up on the original tram when I was a kid. I've used the existing tram. Trams are different than gondolas. If we were just thinking in terms of a ski area, and that was the only use, I would agree that a gondola would be a better use. But what concerns me is the fact that the tram is iconic, that it does attract people specifically to go up a tram. There are not many in this country. The only other one in New England is Jay Peak in Vermont. I think that we heard testimony that the tram brings in about $2 million of non-ski season revenue. I question whether that revenue would happen if it were a gondola, because gondolas are just more common. And I think the whole purpose of this investment is to help fund state parks. It's supposed to be a state park self-funded agency. Obviously, the improvements that we made years ago, Senator Stiles, I think made huge improvements to Hampton Beach. I think this is similar, and I think it will not only benefit Cannon Mountain, but the entire park system. I don't think we get there with a gondola personally, and that's why I'm happy to co-sponsor it and think that we should pass it, table it, and try to figure out how to squeeze it into the budget.
Additional comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to ought to pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's unanimous. 7-0. Oh, I didn't turn that in for the last bill, so she's going to be cutting me down if I don't. The next one on my list is 122, and we will let you turn to those pages and then wait until we're ready. All set. We have an ought to pass by Senator Birdsell and a second by Senator Pearl. All right, this is the Hampton Beach. Comments, questions? Senator Lou, I saw your hand first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I love Hampton Beach. For the record, my wife was a waitress there when we were in college, and I had some very wonderful times with her at Hampton Beach. But this situation is much different than the original thought process. Now, when I heard we're gonna dock cruise ships, how are we gonna drop cruise ships? That was part of the testimony here. In that situation, that pier goes this way and then goes this way. What's that doing for handicapped people? Now we want, I'm sure everyone at this table wants access to a handicapped person. Me, I know better than anybody here, having lived with a handicap for the last 7 months, it ain't easy. And the number of places that aren't handicapped accessible are numerous. So if this were to do that, I would be 100% behind it. But I can't figure out what's really going on here. And $20 million or $22 million is the appropriation. I just can't fathom it out.
Just,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
just looking back at the bill doesn't do any of that, okay? The bill does a feasibility study, so the only thing I can go by is not necessarily the testimony of anybody who thinks we're gonna dock cruise ships there, but that we're going to do a feasibility study for the pier, and so, does it, in my opinion, does it rise to the same level as the tram? Maybe not, but again, working that out when we divvy the money out of what we have through the budget, is probably where that conversation will happen. I did see Senator Birdsell first, Senator Rosenwald. Oh, Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I'm a co-sponsor of this legislation because I share Senator Evard's goal of making our state parks accessible to everybody who lives in New Hampshire. I think that's the least we can do. However, I'm troubled by I'm troubled by a few things. One, I'm troubled by the way the bill is drafted, and that, every time, we just heard it again today, the governor say one-time funds should be used for one-time projects. This is drafted to not use 22-23 surplus, but to use the next year's money that we don't even know what the revenues are going to look like. So I'm troubled by that. I'm troubled by the pictures of like projects from other places, how really big they are, the cruise ships, the fact that this feasibility study group wants to have concession stands and festivals and yoga classes. It's not what Senator Evard was aiming at. And I'm also troubled by the letter from Fish and Game that doesn't like any of the sites that are in the feasibility study because of piping plovers and baby seals. So I think I'm going to have to vote against it. If it were just to appropriate a little bit of it out of 23 surplus, I think I'd vote for it, but as drafted and with the testimony we had, I'm going to vote no.
And certainly passing it and tabling it, or, waiting for a week so that you can have an amendment drafted that would cause restrictions on what it is, certainly all possible. If that's what you want to do, I will ask the person who made the motion and the second to withdraw theirs, and we will hold this off till next week.
Well, I get the sense that since there was a motion to pass it, there are at least 4 votes to pass it. So I'm not sure that waiting and drafting an amendment would further this project.
I believe, Senator, when we get to the money that we were going to spend on recreation in the budget, that these 2 projects that we're talking about today will be weighted against each other and the available funds. And certainly at the time that we actually put the money, into the budget and pass the budget, that's more or less what I think is really going to happen. And the priority between this project, the tram project, and other things that they want to do will actually come out then.
If I could, I think that's interesting because that suggests to me, if I read between the lines, that we're probably all going to think that tram is something we must do. And the pier, I don't know, might be nice if we had unlimited funds and we wanted to have cruise ships and didn't care about the animals that were nesting. So
And I believe that that is a true statement. If you talk to the director, is that she would much rather have the tram at this time than the pier. But again, I think that they both have merits to them that, are at least talking about them when we get to the budget. But to do that, you either need to pass this or not pass it, or, as I said, if you want to put restrictions on what they can do, to say that won't do this, it won't do that, it won't do that, certainly we will consider those.
Well, we could retain it.
We could.
And then we could look at it in the context of the budget
And so
when
for-
we have a sense of
So for
revenues.
right now, I will ask Senator Birdsell and Senator Pearl to withdraw their motion and their second, and we will have a whole week to talk about this before, in small groups. By caucus.
I will pull my ought to pass. Thank you.
I will pull myself.
Okay,
I really don't want to slow down the work of the committee, but
that's okay.
thank you.
I'm gonna try to be, mindful of your time. I don't wanna be here past 4:30, but, if somebody has to be there before that, then, we may shorten this up, but.
Can I just make a quick
Yes, ma'am.
statement? I'm reading through the hearing report, and I understand your concern, because I would not want something that would, we could have a cruise ship in. I think what they were talking about, maybe if anything, were fishing boats that might be able to park.
If I could just respond, I know we don't have a motion before us now. I think the $22 million appropriation was for something really big. So maybe if we did something smaller that could accommodate fishing boats, maybe we'd be looking at a smaller amount of money, but it would require more study that we can come up with in a week. But I'm happy to work on an amendment if the committee would be interested in considering it.
Senator, we will consider whatever you come up with. Okay. We're going to move on to Senate Bill 138.
I will move on to pass.
All right.
Second.
Senator Ennis moves and Senator Birdsell seconds. Again, I look at this as probably a passing table. Comments from the group?
We put a lot of money into PFAS remediation, but the problem continues to grow. I think this is important. Obviously, we're going to have to fit it into the context of the budget.
Yes, sir. Seeing no other comments, all those in favor of ought to pass, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Did we ever? That's what I was gonna ask.
Okay. All right.
So let's talk about 138.
138, I can't assign him to Senator Bradley, see, and I want to so badly.
So my district borders Merrimack.
You would like to take this?
I'd
one?
be happy to.
All right, so 138 is assigned to Senator Rosenwald.
Can I take?
122.
Well, we held it.
122, we took no action.
I'll do 55.
Senator Birdsell is going to get 55. Yeah. And then we're right up to date. 169, I'm going to pass on that one today. My problem with that one, just so that you know, is paying for it, because if I want to connect Rochester City Water to Somersworth City Water, I got to go out and pay for it. Now, this one has the additional thing of being a PFAS issue as the reason I'm doing it. I'd be happier if the governor was saying that they had money that came under whatever and would pay for it. But again, I want to pass on it till next week at least, for those reasons.
Just a quick comment, Mr.
Senator.
In the past, we have taken monies from other sources and used that money to extend water lines. We did it in Goffstown, when we extended water lines to the area that was flooded and contaminated. So we used Manchester Waterworks as the supplier, as Manchester Waterworks currently supplies water to a portion of Goffstown. So we did that, and we've done that in the past. And we did use federal monies that were not appropriated for anything else. So I think given the severity of this problem, that's a good look-see. We should be looking at that. This water problem doesn't get easier as we move forward. It gets worse. Just a thought. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Understand, it's an important issue. Certainly the communities, depending on how much the extension of this water line is, and if there's any ledge in the path, and we already looked at the taxability of it from one community to another, which is in fact the case. And all of those issues are out there. But the main thing is that I don't want to create an expectation on any community that if they try to interconnect their water systems, that the state is going to pay for it. This would be, in my opinion, a special case because of the PFAS issues. But that being said, we're going to move on to Senate Bill 230. And we do have an amendment in 230 which takes out the word efficiency. Pardon, sir? The amendment restates that paragraph and leaves out the word efficiency. Efficiency wasn't defined in the statute, and that even if it were defined, that it may not be the correct use of that word in that paragraph. And efficiency is on line 4 of page 1 of the bill.
So it's just taking that out.
So that the amendment just takes that out. All right, so do I have an ought to pass motion on the bill itself?
Yeah, so moved.
Bradley moves ought to pass, seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Okay, do I have a motion on the amendment?
So moved.
I've got a whole bunch of ought to pass on the, I heard Senator Birdsell, I heard Senator Lou, I heard Senator Bradley. We'll take the first two I heard, Senator Birdsell and Senator Lou, for the motion and second on the amendment. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, and now the bill as amended. Is there any further discussion?
Move on.
230 has already been moved, so we don't have to do that again. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion passes as amended. I'll take that one out. Since I wrote the amendment. Since I wrote the amendment, I will take that one out. Okay. Now, going back to the list of second committee bills, I want to say this, that I had a couple of the senators, especially one senator from, that just came out of the House, saying that our $10,000 criteria may be too low, and why are we applying that to revenue that's coming in? And after thinking about it and talking with LBA, talking with Senator Lou about it, I tend to agree with that. So we're going to do a better scrub on the FNs for things that we let go through to try to keep the list down. Certainly, there are political reasons why we take things, and we will do that. But the limits for, you know, expenses are going to be up near 100,000, which is, if you measure that by a $13.1 billion budget, you know, $100,000 is what fiscal can do. So, you know, I don't know that we should worry about it. The limit that I'm going to use for revenues is going to be fluctuating, because if Ways and Means are going to come back and tell us, you know, what the budget is going to be or what the revenues are going to be, for us to worry about that too awfully much, I don't think is prudent. As we apply this, certainly all of you should come back to me and tell me that I'm full of whatever it is that you think I'm full of, and we will do that. So without that, we will go to Senate Bill 49. We have an ought to pass motion on Senate Bill 49.
Thought we were gonna skip this one.
51 was the one that I wanted to skip. But this was dedicated non-lapsing for OPLC. There is going to be a lot of changes in OPLC. But this one right here, I think, is a policy decision that allows them to keep at least part of the money so they can pay some of the expenses. So Senator Pearl made the motion, and Senator Rosenwald made the second. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. And I don't know who to ask it of, but is OPLC now authorized to set all the fees for their boards or not? I know that Senator Gaida worked on bills over a couple of years, and I cannot remember whether they're able to do this or the individual boards are still setting their own fees. So I don't know, but if they're setting their own fees, every board, then this is a little weirder. But
I should know the answer to this, being the chair of ED&A, but I'm still new to it, so there's some things I don't know yet.
All right.
maybe Mike knows.
There's a question on this, and Senator Birdsall is right. If I go back and read my own handwriting, because the governor didn't say he was going to do a whole lot with OPLC, it probably would be best to wait a week if.
I'll withdraw.
I'll withdraw.
Or we can pass it now and put it on the table.
That's fine too. Why don't we just wait for the week and then we'll go from there.
Maybe we can get an
51
answer on that.
51, now that I'm looking at it, it is one that we looked at, the horse racing, Senate Bill 51.
This, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
this bill's a combination of a bill that I sponsored and Senator Valera sponsored, so we morphed the two bills together. And I agree with his sentiment and will support the bill. I think that there are a couple of things that really have to be looked at. And one is the expansion of charitable gaming. And the impact of historical racing on revenues that the charities are going to receive. The money appropriated comes from the Lottery Commission. We need that. You need that money in order to get some experts to give you some testimony. But the bill also amends the moratorium on historical horse racing. At the 16 facilities that we have now, I don't know if you've been watching television, but those are pretty aggressive ads that appear on a daily basis. And on the bottom of the union leader, there's a column every day that talks about big winnings. I won $11,000, I won $12,000, and so forth. And there's no comment about the money that goes to charitable gaming. as a result of this. And there's no inclination as to what charities are served, what the charities use the money for, and substantial amount of money is given out. I'm told that it's in the mega millions of dollars. You know, they talk about 3 million, 4 million. That's a considerable amount of money that's coming from these facilities, and we're adding more facilities. There's a plan to build one here in Concord, a fairly substantial one here in Concord, and there's one in Lebanon that's going up, and that one in Keene is going to expand at the Wonder Casino in Keene. So there's a lot of activity here that needs to be looked at. I mean, it's a flourishing business. I don't think there's any question about that. It's a flourishing business. We have a minimal tax rate on the business. I think it costs you $575 for a license to have a charitable gaming facility. You know, that's because the charity gets 35%, Center Hotel, worked out all that. I do believe this deserves to be looked at. It's a flourishing situation. It's an expanding situation. The charities are very, very supportive of this, very supportive of it. And now I'm getting calls from charities as to why I can't get better dates with what's happened. So I think it's an area that deserves a look-see. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That sounded like you were volunteering.
I will volunteer, absolutely.
Then I will hold off on executing this bill I'll give you 2 weeks. How's that?
Can I raise an issue on this bill?
Certainly, Senator Bradley.
Would your co-sponsor, Senator D,
Yes.
would it be appropriate to look at whether the municipalities that host charitable gaming also get a slice of the proceeds?
Sure.
I think when you're thinking about any changes that might come to this,
Right.
we should put a sentence in that would allow the commission to study that.
Sure. Yes, I think it's very reasonable. There are amenities that the locals have to produce. Granted, they probably get paid for the police, but they still have fire. They do have police, and they do have other amenities that have to be provided in case there's a problem. But just, Senator, in terms of an update, what would you like in terms of a change to the bill?
I was going to vote for the bill, so I didn't have anything that I wanted to do, but I was, in deference to you, if you want to wait, we can wait. If you don't want to wait, I'm
fine.
certainly willing to push it forward.
I'm fine with the bill. Let's go. I think we ought to get going on it.
Get going on it. All right, so I'll turn.
Ought to pass?
So Senator Rosenwald was the first one that said that she wanted the ought to pass motion. So we're going to allow her to do that. Okay? On 51, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right.
Okay, seconded by Senator Pearl.
Can I be recognized then for an amendment?
You can be recognized for an amendment. Yes, sir.
On line 19 after the word horse racing. The commission shall examine whether host communities should share in the proceeds of any charitable gaming establishment.
Yeah, I'd support that amendment. Makes sense. Bring it forward as a committee.
No, I've forgotten it already. I think Kevin has it probably. I think the amendment was something to the effect of the commission shall examine whether host communities shall share in the proceeds of any charitable gaming establishment.
I'll second that.
Well,
Thank you.
Ms. Martell is still writing, so we want to make sure that she has it.
No, LBA's got the language, so I'm good.
LBA has the language.
I'm good.
All right. Well, see, I'm not used to having an LBA because, you know. Do you have the language?
Yes.
And would you repeat it so that Senator Bradley can say amen?
Sure. On line 19, after horse racing, we would add, the commission shall examine whether host communities should share in the proceeds of any charitable gaming establishment.
Senator Bradley concurs. All right, so Senator Bradley moves that amendment. Who seconds that
Second.
amendment?
I second it.
Senator D'Alessandro seconds the amendment. Further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing no one opposed, now we're going to the bill as amended, and that was Senator Rosenwald and Senator Pearl. Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Would you like me to take this one up?
I have a volunteer.
I'll take it.
Okay. So that was 51, 56.
I think we're gonna hold off on that one.
Relative to payments, upland losses, is there anything anybody wants to talk about on that one? Certain jurisdictional resource losses? Okay, we'll let you think about that one for a week. 57, the only thing I want to do on 57 is express my displeasure in the bill. I tell people it's, you know, when we were looking at this retirement system all the way back when, we said that these are the parameters, and those parameters included a reduction, okay? Now that we've done a few other things, they want changes in that. According to the question that I asked LBA, this is going to add an additional $45 million to the unfunded liability to do this. And that is a significant number when we're still talking billions of dollars that we have in unfunded liability. And then I was asking questions about the healthcare, and I find that there is additional unfunded liability in healthcare, and I'm not sure whether that's part of the $4 to $6 billion for the retirement system or not, but I don't know that we can afford this right now. And if somebody wants to try and convince me, I'll give you some time to do that, but
I'd love to do that.
okay, then we'll move on to 69.
I'll move on to pass.
69, we have Senator Bradley.
I'll
moves
second.
on to pass. Seconded by Senator Rosenwald.
Or not.
Well, I heard her first, you know. And, you know,
said it first.
this is Valentine's Day, you know, ladies go first on Valentine's Day. What can I say?
Ladies go first off.
Oh, ladies go first always, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. They especially go first on Valentine's Day.
Even if they're
Especially.
right.
We'll try to get myself out of this. As a consumer generator for host stuff. Okay? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any conversation? Okay. All those in favor of ought to pass, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The bill passes. Is there any volunteers to take this one?
I'll take it up.
All right, 2 in a row for Senator Pearl.
That way I don't
You-
fall asleep during Senate session.
You didn't get to make the motion or the second, so you got the bill.
It's all right, I'll do
think
the work.
That's fine. Okay, 112 is next on my list. Tell me if I'm going too fast, Deb. No, no, no. He's talking to me. Remember I said ladies go first? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
The committee, the Ways and Means Committee amendment took out some of the original policy of the bill. And
Yep.
I'm just wondering if it needs a new fiscal note. Because we took out the
40-mile
simulcast
radius, right, right.
racing, and we
Well-
took out the 40-mile.
We'll pass on that
Exclusion
and I'll look
zone.
for LBA to give me some guidance for the next time.
Okay.
Rosenwald, do you have an amended fiscal note on it?
I don't.
You should have one of 214.
Well,
Oh,
oh,
we do have
it
one.
must have snuck in at lunchtime.
We could
Okay.
have.
In that case, may
All
I
right,
move
says,
on to pass?
Requires all breakage to be used in the agency as payment for problem gaming. Okay. So we have Senator Rosenwald saying ought to pass.
I can second that.
Senator Innes seconds it. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it. And Senator Rosenwald, you get to take that one out.
Okay.
Since- Next one on my list was 119.
I'll move out to pass.
Second.
Just a second till I get there. This is the background checks, and it was Senator Innes and Senator Pearl, the motion and the second. Am I good on time, Deborah? Okay. Any comments on this? This would be people that are not directly involved in the gaming. Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Take it out?
Can we put
I'm
some of
willing
these on
to.
consent?
I mean,
I'll take it.
Senator Innes
It's,
and
coming out of-
D'Alessandro
coming
and
out of
I will
finance,
serve
you
on.
cannot put them on consent.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Unless we-
Senator Rosenwald thinks.
Senator
Let's
Innes,
amend the rules.
Senator Innes has volunteered to take them out.
You got it.
Senate rule, whatever it is.
Yeah, I forgot, I'm sorry.
And that's, again, a reason to modify the criteria that we use to get these here, is so that we take further, fewer bills that the committee has already done and that won't make
Yeah,
a
good point.
significant enough difference. And again, I apologize, I'm still learning, so. Yeah. All right, so that was 119.
54.
I've got a pass on 120.
Pass.
Um,
Okay.
The reason for that, I think this is the one that changes, on page 7, line 29. It changes the bet from $10, which I remember either was in the House or the Senate, that we argued and argued and argued over getting from $5 to $10, and now we're doing 5 times that. So I've got a problem with that. It may be part of the policy, but, so that's why I said I'm not gonna take it today. 123 is the next one on my list.
I think you want to hold off on that one too, Senator, 123.
That I want to what?
Hold off on
Is that the one
123.
that read?
Hold off on 123, okay.
And 128.
And 128.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
But on 128, we're holding off on that too?
Yep.
Is that what you said?
That's what I
Okay.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
This was the payment of legal services. We just got the fiscal note on one of these that talked about that it was, the money was appropriated in one department, go to another department, but then there was a $100 a case, $65 a case, and then somewhere else, $600. So I don't know if you followed all of that and which bill that applied to, but I didn't, and I need a little time. Okay?
Can I throw one other comment
Absolutely.
out there? So this is one of the things that typically comes to fiscal during the year for extra money. And we're able to appropriate general funds in fiscal for the judicial council. And we always do lots and lots because we never budget enough money knowing that we can add to it in fiscal.
So that sounds like a suggestion to me that we put this on the side burner somehow, either re-referred or inexpedient to legislate because fiscal can do it, or what am I hearing?
No, I thought we should pass this bill, actually.
And table it?
I would like to move on to pass.
Come on forward.
And if there were a second, I would like to.
Since we have such an esteemed expert here, we will call him forward and let Mr. Head inform us.
Thank you, Senator. I'm Richard Head. I'm the Government Affairs Coordinator for the Judicial Branch. This is a bill that we had requested, and I can speak to the fiscal note that was submitted by Judicial Council. It's actually not new money. So currently, involuntary emergency admissions are being funded through the Judicial Branch for the legal services and associated legal services. This has recently come to the Judicial Branch. It had been funded through DHHS, but with the recent reconfiguration of the involuntary emergency admission process, we took that on. We have a contract with the attorneys that are providing these services, and there are two different groups or two different types of admissions that we're talking about. One is an involuntary emergency admission, which is the one that requires a hearing within 3 days. And then there is just the involuntary admissions, which does not have the emergency aspect on it. Those are typically to retain people within the system who were originally admitted through an involuntary emergency admission. The contract we have with the attorneys for the IEAs, the involuntary emergency admissions, is $100 per case. The set fee for the involuntary admissions, not the emergency, it's actually $62 a case. I learned not 65, but in the fiscal note, I know that Judicial Council put in an alternative at $600, which is the cap by a rule, but the rule never really applies because we have a set fee per case at either 100 or 62, depending on the type of case. It's also not new money because it's currently being funded originally through DHHS, now through the Judicial Branch. It's the same money that's being used, and now we just basically want to shift that processing of these funds over to Judicial Council, since that's been the traditional relationship between the Judicial Branch and the Judicial Council. So what we're really doing is moving money that started with DHHS, is now landing in our lap, and we want to move it over to the Judicial Council. But we're not talking about new money in the grand scheme of things. We're talking about sort of moving money into a direction towards Judicial Council.
Okay.
We move on to pass.
Second.
Do I have a motion and a second? The motion was made by Senator D'Alessandro, second by Senator Bertzel. Senate Bill 128. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. This to me, again, seems like a table one.
Who's gonna take it out?
Senator Lou's going to take it out. if it's already in the budget, it needs to be moved in the budget from one pocket to the other pocket. So we need to actually take that action in the budget, and that's why I would table it and do it there. If you want to come back up, Senator D disagrees, and I want to give him due time to.
So I think that works. As long as it's explicit that judicial council, it's funded through judicial council, it would be fine if it was in the budget instead of as a standalone bill. I think that works fine too.
All right, since the decision to table or not to table doesn't really have to happen, at this meeting, my preference would be to table it, but I have been instructed in the past to change my mind, and I do know how to just take a step backwards. We already voted.
We're good.
And you're taking the bill out. We're just discussing. The only discussion that we're having right now is whether to table or not table. And we can do that outside of here.
Way beyond.
Okay. So we've got the same kind of situation here. Mr. Head, you going to come back up and talk about 129 now, or and the differences in this one?
Thank you again, Richard Head, the Government Affairs Coordinator for the Judicial Branch. This also was a bill we had requested. Current practice is that, so again, short part of my testimony would be that there's no new money that we're talking about in terms of expenditure. Currently, indigent mediation fees for marital cases is funded through the Mediation and Arbitration Fund that's funded through a court filing fee. The current statute says that if the judge determines that somebody is indigent, or both parties are indigent for purposes of paying the mediation costs, that's funded through the Mediation and Arbitration Fund. The current law says that cost containment will seek to recover those funds from the parties after the fact. What we want to do is, as part of our case processing, is to encourage people to use mediation services as much as possible. We've already determined that the parties are indigent, and we are looking to take away the authority to seek the funds after the fact from the indigent parties, because that, we believe, is a negative on their willingness to participate in the mediation process. The same amount of money is being expended, whether or not we can recover that money. I don't know how much money is actually recovered since it does not come back from us. Our assumption is that it's a very small amount. But in the fiscal note, I did put how much we expend on average annually. And it's not.
68,600.
Sounds about right. So the money expenditure is not new. We would not be recovering a small amount of that, but the negative on that is significant, we think, in terms of our ability to encourage the parties to participate in the mediation process.
I'd move out to pass.
Senator Pearl moves ought to pass, second by Senator Birdsall.
I think it was Senator Rosenwald.
Oh, it's,
She
oh, I heard.
She was just a little softer,
See, from over here, the acoustics are different.
She sits closer.
Well, that's true. That 600 feet a minute, that sound travels,
The echo changed the voice.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
I'll take it
Ayes
out.
have it.
I'll take it out.
And Senator Pearl,
I'll make it easy on you.
okay. All right. 154.
Make a motion on pass.
Second?
We have a motion from Senator Innes and seconded by Senator Rosenwald. She beat you out. She's on it today. She's on it, that's right. Okay, we do have,
You're not frozen.
we do have an amended fiscal note as of yesterday. $320,000 in '24, $330,000 in '25, $338,000 for the university system, and then community college would be $140,000, $140,000, $140,000 in '24, '25, '26, respectively. And this would be for children and guardianships. Absolutely. You got to turn your mic on though. I'll get in trouble.
We don't want that. You've got to keep you out of trouble.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
I
that.
insist on that. Does this mean that Pell Grants and just ordinary university money, merit money and so forth, is not included in this cost? Because many of these students, through the Pell Grant and through dollars that are available through the State Student Incentive Grant and others, get a fairly substantial scholarship at both at the university and at the community college system. And so waivers are big. The question is, do they include them in this, or do they seek them out in order to get these kids in and get their tuition paid for, tuition and fees?
I don't have an answer to that. I guess from what I thought was happening is that whatever money they got from the Pell Grant, and that this would pay the remainder, but whether it's LBA or somebody, they can research that and get back with an answer, and we will hold on this one until that happens.
Well,
So-
a Pell is around $6,000, almost $7,000 if you get the maximum Pell. And then if you get SSIG, you get more money. It seems to me that many of these people fall into that category. And the university itself has that merit scholarship.
And that's a good reason for the person who made the motion and made the second to withdraw those, and we can get the answer to your question back.
All right, happy to do so.
Okay. So the motion and the second has been withdrawn. 157 is the next one on my list. Election audits. I do want to talk about this one for just a second.
Do you need a motion to talk?
Yeah, we can take the motion now.
Move on to pass.
Senator Birdsell moves ought to pass, and I will second it.
Discussion.
We don't add personnel in here, we don't do a lot of things, but when you look at the cumulative changes that we have made to the Secretary of State's office for this, which this is a very intense thing that happens, during a 3 or 4 day period, but many people in the Secretary of State's office have to be there and be involved, but we don't add people. If you look at the fiscal note that was on the portal bill, okay, it went back and says, okay, we need to add 2 people, kind of because, we're at the tipping point. So again, I'm not asking you to do anything different than this, but I want you to look at it and see that we don't add any persons, any people to their staff here, but at some point in the process, we need to look at all of the things that we've asked them to do, between this audit, the additional audits, that we're doing, some of the other things that we're having them do relative to the election, their hotline that they've staffed up even more than they have before. And so at some point, they do get to the tipping point. Which bill they put it on or whatever, may be a question. But I've said what I needed to say. We have a motion of ought to pass Made by Senator Birdsell, seconded by myself. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
I'll take that.
And Senator Birdsell,
Oh, is it your bill?
probably.
Do you want to take it out?
I'll take it out.
I'll do it.
Well, it doesn't matter. I think you're a co-sponsor.
Yeah.
But, no, let me take that one out in case you don't think I get a fair share of the ones to take out. Okay, so 167 is the next thing I've got, and that's relative to green hydrogen energy infrastructure.
I'll move on to pass.
167.
Second.
We have a Senator Pearl moves ought to pass, and we had, I'm going to give this one to you, Senator Bradley, because Senator Rosenwald has been faster than you, but, you know,
We gotta get your name in the
we,
minutes.
We need some relevance here.
Yeah.
Should I speak for 5 minutes on this bill?
You should not.
Well, you're going to be up on the podium, so I don't think
Yeah,
you're going to
all right,
speak
no.
at all.
You won't get recognized.
But if you need me to go up there and bang the gavel a couple of times, so you can, you know.
Not now.
All right, further comments on 167? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Senator Rosenwald, you get to take it out since you tried to second it, and I passed you up.
I always say that I never speak about energy, but I might get up on the floor and say, green is not really my color. Why can't we make energy purple or yellow?
Teal?
Red for fire.
Okay, that was 167. The next one I have is
172.
172, court-appointed guardians, temporary assistance to needy families
I
benefit.
move on to pass.
We have Senator Birdsell moving ought to pass, seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Let me, Deb hasn't yelled at me yet, so.
She's writing quickly. I'm impressed.
Okay.
Her typing was impressive.
Okay. Comments, discussion? Senator?
Thank you. I had Mr. Ripple check today to make sure there was enough money in the TANF reserve fund, and we have $67 million there. So we have enough. We get 32 million a year from the federal government. We have to spend 38. Since COVID, the TANF caseloads have gone down because unemployment counted towards income. So we've built back up the TANF reserves. So we can afford to do this, and it's the right thing to do.
Okay. All right, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Senator Lou, you get this one. All right, 188. Yes, there's an amendment by Senator Fenton, amendment number 2023-0513S, and replacing all after the enacting clause.
And apparently it was to address concerns from the troopers, is my understanding.
From the troopers?
Yes, I guess so. I'm seeing nods in the back of the room. And that's what the amendment does.
Since this amendment just came out on the 14th, I haven't read it, and therefore I'm not ready to vote on it. So, not that.
Yeah, and I think that the amendment should be run by the Transportation Committee.
Okay.
Completely replacing the bill.
Deb, would that be you
Yeah.
to send it to the Transportation Chair?
Yeah, I also understand the automobile dealers may still have some concerns.
Okay, include that in the note to transportation, because if they want to take Senator Fenton's amendment plus anything that the auto dealers come in with, and come in to us with an amendment, then I'm probably, depending on germaneness, I may hold a hearing or not hold a hearing on it.
No.
This, did it, oh, it went through transportation.
Yep.
Okay?
Got it?
All right, next one on my list is 190. Relative to advance deposit accounts wagering. We're gonna have to ask Senator Lou to explain all this to me, since I don't do a lot of gambling, you know, but. Passed the committee 4-0 because someone was absent that day. Allows advanced deposit wagering, pari-mutuel betting on horse racing, etc. Discussion?
You need a second? I'll second.
Who was the
Senator
motion?
Rosenwald.
Senator Rosenwald was the motion. Senator Pearl was the second.
Was that an ought to pass?
Yes.
An ought to pass. Discussion?
Yes.
I would just note a typo in the bill, in the very first line. I think thereon should have another E before the O. But
Theron.
Okay. So we have a committee amendment to correct spelling. You know, I always tell people, I are an engineer, we're not noted for our grammar nor our spelling. So, okay.
Mr. Chair, would we need an amendment for that, or would that just be something that they would
It-
pick up as a spelling issue?
When LBA goes to them and talks it over with them, we could do it here, we could do it as a roll bill amendment, we could do it a lot of different ways, and I'll let them figure it all out. But right now, we're gonna pass it like it were an amendment, and then we'll fight it out on the floor, because if I don't need the amendment, then it can go in the calendar as an ought to pass.
I don't feel the need to bring an amendment. I just wanted to note that.
I'm gonna ask for guidance from LBA.
And if it does pass this way, this is something that OLS could do as an enrolled bill amendment before it becomes law.
Okay, so we'll dispense with the amendment, we'll just note it. And further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it.
Who's gonna take it out?
Senator Birdsell just volunteered.
Thank you.
Only if I get the next one.
Oh, you want
that one?
Okay, Senate Bill 191.
Leverage.
Senate Bill 191 also has a revised fiscal
I'll
note
remember.
dated the 13th. 400,000, 800,000, 800,000 in 24, 25, and 26, relative to road toll registration surcharges for electric vehicles.
I move ought to pass.
Senator Birdsell moves ought to pass. Senator D'Alessandro seconds.
It's good.
Discussion?
I'm going to weigh in with the same concern that I weighed in with earlier, is this, in my opinion, creates a new tax, and it was not something, I've voted against this bill many times in the House, or one's very similar to it, so I did not support this on the floor when it came through from Ways and Means, and I won't support it again now.
Understood.
But if I might, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
The fact of the matter is it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. We're noticing it now. Gas tax revenues are going south. These revenues will hopefully so- help for it. They won't do it all, but they'll help for it. And this trend is not going to go away. This trend is going to continue. And we're pushing it ourselves. I mean, we're our own, worst enemies in this context because we're pushing electric vehicles. I think it's something we just have to face. We've got to move forward.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I struggle a bit with this because traditionally people who've bought electric cars have always paid more for them. And so then we're asking them to pay yet again more. But I just read yesterday that with the federal incentives, the cost of a new electric car is likely to be the same as the cost of an internal combustion engine. So I am more comfortable with this surcharge, knowing that these cars use the roads.
Senator Bertzel.
As former chair of transportation, I do know that the concern has been that the electric vehicles, they don't use the gas, therefore they're not paying the taxes. However, most of them, because of the weight, are the same weight as a Silverado, and they do damage to the roads, and they haven't been helping to pay for it. So I'm comfortable, and I'm not big on fees, but I think Senator Lewis says it's coming. It has to come. We need to maintain our infrastructure, and this is the only way right now that we can do it.
I'll put my electrical engineering hat on. One of the things about electric vehicles is the continuing maintenance costs. That to service an electric motor as opposed to servicing a gasoline-powered engine is significantly different. So you still have the same gearboxes and all the other things that you would have, but that at least purported to be the big difference, and that, saves the people. The reason that I even consider this one is that because of an electric vehicle, we have an avoidance of a tax that everybody else pays. Okay, and that is the thing that is seen as the inequity. Okay, I know that several bills have been passed or attempted in the House that dealt with the number of miles that the vehicle was going to get in gas mileage, and then have a tax based on that, so that if you had an F-150 like I have that gets 13 to 16 miles to the gallon, that you wouldn't have to pay anything. But if you had a Camry that got 30, or my Civic that gets close to 40, that I would have to pay. And again, those bills went down to defeat. All right, so this one I look at as kind of a compromise, is that the problem is on this bill, it doesn't have the people who from out of state pay anything. Mm-hmm. And at some point, what we may need to do is that people from out of state or people who use charging stations may need to do something in paying road tolls but that is a very, very, very complicated issue. Will take someone who might live in Wolfboro, drives down here, charges while he's here, before he goes back to ensure that his charge is fine and gets him all the way. But, if he's charging at home, then he does or doesn't have to pay the fee. But if he's so again, it gets into so much complication. This, I believe, is a first step in equity. And I think somebody else wants to talk. Senator.
Well, since you referenced the driver from Wolfboro, I obviously own a plug-in hybrid. I am happy to pay this. The consensus of, I think, the committee is that you know, electric vehicles are not paying what they should be paying, and they're creating wear and tear on our roads. And I can tell you, I like this a heck of a lot better than a mileage fee that would be assessed through who knows what kind of auditors and things like that. It'd be complicated. This is very simple to administer. It's part of the way that we normally administer things. I think it's very appropriate.
One quick comment.
And I think, Howard, you should get yourself an electric truck, and then you'll want to pay this too.
Mr. Chair, will this be one of those that we pass and table?
It has that possibility of being, doing that so that we can look at what the provisions in the budget are. But Senator Innes did have a question.
Not now.
No. He doesn't have, so I would suggest that both sides, when we caucus, that we talk about whether this one would be a pass and table or just a pass. All right, further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of ought to pass, say aye, aye, and all those opposed?
No.
And we have,
One dissent.
the ayes have it, no matter what.
Right.
Okay. And Senator Bertzel, we'll take this one up.
You didn't want me to?
You're not on the providing side.
I'm gonna go awful quick over the nose.
All right. That is 191, 197, relative to the operation, regulation of certain business entities within the state and establishing a safety program is 256. I'm going to say we're going to wait on those because I do want to get you out of here for 4:30, as I promised. And we still have, well, I took care of that last night. She went out and she had her margarita, she had her steak. She was very happy with me this morning.
I was thinking of myself, Senator.
Okay. Is there any other comments before we come out of executive session?
Move out of exec.
Seeing none, we've got a motion and a second to come out of executive session. Senator Birdsall, Senator Innes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Our business being completed for the day, we are adjourned.
Nicely done, Senator. Thank you.